Welcome, everyone, to Family Comes First. I'm Vincent J. Russo.
And I'm Victoria Roberts-Drogan. Thank you for joining us today. Over the years, we've been filming Family Comes First, and we've had the privilege of meeting many wonderful people who shared their stories and their families.
That's right, Victoria. And we've had many people wonder how they're doing today. So, on Family Comes First, this is a special treat. We're going to be giving an update on how they are doing.
Back in 2010, we met with Gary Carpenter, who shared with us his ongoing battle against multiple sclerosis. Let's watch.
Probably when was the first time that I saw something was different? I would say about 18 years ago. 18 years ago, because I was a baseball player. And during games, prior to that and during it, I saw there was a problem. I wasn't able to see the ball clearly, and I could get hurt from that. Knew something was wrong.
At that point, you must have needed to make quite a few adjustments, both at home, at work. What was that like?
Well, again, the adjustments that needed to be made were not many. Okay? Things that I couldn't do anymore. I couldn't run, but I could walk.
Okay.
So I was able to walk. I had to kind of like not go up and down stairs as much because coordination wasn't as good. I had to do what's called fatigue control because I found myself getting tired a lot.
That's a tremendous thing to hear.
Yeah, but I'm also one of the lucky ones, maybe. Okay, and the fact that when I was diagnosed, I took things at that point in time were very important that I change fatigue control, continue with physical therapy, and make sure my mind was as strong as it always is. Multiple sclerosis is not life-threatening. It is life-changing, and sometimes change is positive.
I can't wait to hear from Gary as to what's going on with his life over the last 2 years. I know there are some interesting developments.
Yeah.
Back in 2008, Mark Haubner joined us in our first season of Family Comes First and shared with us what life is like when you have osteoarthritis. Let's take a look.
The big thing is most of the time you get sick and retire, or you retire and then get sick and you're 65 or 70. This all started, my if you want to call it a forced retirement, started at 44.
Oh.
And you think you're going to last another 40 years. Now you got to think about really what you've got to do to make that stretch. With any kind of illness or death in the family, of course, you deny it, that you're that sick or any kind of sick. So that went on for a long time. That went on for years. I had so much trouble even at the beginning, in the first 3 or 4 or 5 years, before I could even say when I got sick. I always was referring to it as when I got hurt, because it was so painful. All this was just pain, pain, pain.
He can't do the steps. A simple thing as you would even give it a thought of climbing steps, going to the trains, going on job interviews, all of that he no longer can do because of the arthritis. Who would think? I mean, I never gave it a thought that concrete could hurt your knees, hurt your legs, and yet he finds it very severe.
I don't know if you've ever stepped on the brakes really hard in your car, and everything slides off the seats onto the floor. That was my life, because we had come to a screeching halt. Everything that I'd been doing up to that point had stopped immediately within a matter of months. And the life changes after that had to be conscious and with effort and mindfulness and hope and faith and everything else that goes into getting through a family calamity.
You know, it was incredible to watch that then, and I can't wait to hear some of the work Mark is doing now, the advocacy that he's doing, and just how things have been.
Absolutely. In 2009, Michael Amoruso shared with us his family experience when Warren entered their life. Let's take a look.
I went to Boston College and played varsity golf at Boston College. But when I wasn't playing golf, I would play with my roommates and friends, and we'd pick up basketball. Interestingly, pickup basketball is where I learned that something must be going on with my eyesight. I started getting hit in the face with the ball. Didn't see it coming from the side. And I called my father up and I said, I think something's going on here. That next morning, when we headed up to the specialist, he came into the room and he did a thorough examination on me. About an hour later, he comes back in. You have retinitis pigmentosa of the eyes.
How has life changed for you and your family now that Warren is part of the family?
Got my independence back.
Wow.
I'm now traveling places that I haven't been able to go to on my own since college. And for me personally, that's such a rewarding feeling. And that sense of independence, my dignity's back as an individual. For my family, my girls can be little girls now. They don't have to worry about daddy. My wife can be a wife. She doesn't have to worry about getting me to and from. She can have her life now, as well as our family life. The day I found out I was going to go blind, for example, I was on a putting green. To me, that was a chapel. I went to a putting green just to putt, and I was talking to God. And you know something? When I left that putting green, after the sun went down, I saw how beautiful it was. And I said, that's a sunset I'm never, ever going to forget.
Since that time, there have been some big changes in Mike's life, and I look forward to hearing about them.
Absolutely.
Welcome, Gary, Mark, Michael. Thank you all so much for being here today with us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's going to. This is a special show for us, having all three of you previous guests of Family Comes First, and I can't wait to hear what you're up to today and give us an update. So let's start with Gary.
A lot has happened, Vincent, since for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Two very, very important pieces in my life and for what I represent the MS Society. The reaction of the film that I was involved in throughout Long Island has been tremendous.
The film being Family Comes First.
Family Comes First has been tremendous.
Yeah.
Tremendous to the point that the MS Society has gotten recognition as to their value, what they do. And I constantly say, as my wife Patty and I talk, I must get 5 to 10 calls a week from two newly diagnosed people, okay, which is something that I'm a very big believer in, and speaking to them and helping them. So I really think a lot had to do with that film that we made.
Yeah, so, and I think that's great. You know, the awareness piece makes us feel so good. And I know you're so focused on the helping people with early intervention.
Yes.
And so I'm thrilled to hear that.
Yeah.
That alone is so valuable because when you're newly diagnosed, it's terrifying. So to be able to reach out to someone, and we've heard feedback too on that show and how much it's meant to have somebody to start with, you know, whether it's a parent with a child or someone who's just learned. Yeah.
Now, Healthwise.
Oh, Healthwise, that's an incredible little story. Literally months after we did the first film, a drug was approved by the FDA called Ampera. It only has a 40% success rate, and its purpose is to help MS people walk. My walking has never been better than it's been today.
Yeah.
So I really think, as I say, I'm a firm believer in the man upstairs, okay, and I had said, you help me, and I'm going to represent you here in this plight. And well, he came back and gave me something. I was one of the winners.
And then you came back and gave so much.
Yeah. So that was good. That was good. So those are probably the two big things. But I always talk with Vincent and with you about also is the value of the family.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Well, you've
even
had
though
some
I'm
exciting news in your family.
Well,
Is that true?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. The family is very, very close. They were close to me when I was diagnosed and still continue and will continue even as they move on in life, as my oldest daughter Danielle just got engaged on Christmas Day.
Congratulations. That is wonderful.
That's great.
news. Very exciting.
Now, Mark, I know a lot's happened since 2008. It's amazing that you were on our first season and shared your story of what's happened to you and how you've dealt with it and shared your family. So how are things going?
Thank you very much for having me back. I think the follow-up is really important for people to see. My health has deteriorated, but I've also been given a great opportunity through the Arthritis Foundation to do advocacy work with them, and that included doing new advocate training with Tim Bishop, our legislator, at the meeting. Going to Washington every year. This is my 8th year going to Washington.
You've spoken to some big groups.
I actually spoke to Daniel Inouye at the Department of Defense in June, and he just died recently. I'm very sorry for that. But
The Department of Defense, because
what they found is that 1/3 of the medical evacuations that are being done in the field in Afghanistan and so on are because of musculoskeletal damage injuries, and that 40% of their disability is due, or early release from the military is due to arthritis.
wow.
So osteo has become a very prevalent concern for them.
Right, you wouldn't make that connection. It's not obvious, but once you hear it, it makes complete sense,
sure.
and it's really
And
important.
maybe we'll see some real positive change then.
I'm hoping, and money into research, that's the biggest thing that we need right now besides advocacy is research.
Right, and also what you had been explaining was that people don't realize how this disease affects children.
Yeah, there are 300,000 children in the United States with juvenile arthritis.
Yeah.
And osteo to some small extent, but mostly juvenile.
Yeah.
18,000 children in New York.
Yeah.
And when a senator or a representative comes into the office and says, wow, kids get arthritis too? It means we got to start again.
Right.
Yeah.
And the advocacy is part of the awareness. The awareness is that we've got to get rid of this disease. It's unacceptable to have it.
Yeah, I mean, all three of you have that advocacy bug in you. I know that. Also, on a personal level, knee replacement?
Just had the 5th total joint replacement done in June or July, and it was a huge success. The amount of just the technology alone catching up is just phenomenal. The knee itself is designed to last 25 years, whereas the other 2 or 3 that I've had done were only expected to last 14 or 15 years, and that was 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
we're
you
holding our breath
yeah.
over here.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
That's right.
Yeah, but you see a difference in how the two feel?
Not really, as much as the physical therapy has improved as well.
Sure.
The techniques that they're using now are just phenomenal. I was actually up and walking briskly within 4 to 5 weeks.
It's remarkable.
Yeah, which is not what I remember from the last time.
Yeah, remarkable.
Yeah. Michael, big changes.
Tremendous changes.
Yeah, share with us.
Well, one of the questions you asked me last time was, how had Warren changed my life? And I responded, he gave me my independence back.
Right.
Well, earlier this year, Warren, fell gravely ill, and we had unfortunately put him to sleep to put him out of the pain he was suffering.
That is so hard for your family
Oh, tremendously so.
and for you.
It's interesting. When you have a partnership, you always focus on, at least initially, you focus on where you're going to go, where you're going to grow together, and you rarely think about what's going to happen when the partnership needs to come to an end. And in Warren's case, in my case, it came too soon. The dog was only 5 years old, and we were together for 3 years. So it was a shocking end to a partnership. And I'll never forget, after I put Warren down, I actually left the vet's office with my cane. I forgot how to use it.
Wow.
And I'd been using a cane before the dog for 16 years.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. I thought about that question you asked, because all of a sudden my independence was taken from me again because I just couldn't walk. And I know this is the Telecare network. That next Sunday, I went to church. And I was standing in the back of the room, which is what I always did with the dog, because he had trouble with the pews. And I could not walk forward to get the communion.
Wow.
So I was stuck in the back of the church. Well, with every partnership and every change, there's always a new beginning that has to occur.
Yes.
And that also occurs, not just with a dog, but with caregivers that we will have in our own lives. You always have to be willing to accept that next person or animal and open your heart
Yeah.
to be loved and cared for by that individual.
Right.
And boy, was I blessed with a seeing eye. I told him I'd like to try a shepherd this time, and went there in September. And the first block, we bonded immediately.
Dimitri.
This is Dimitri.
Dimitri.
Yeah.
He's a beautiful
See Dimitri
dog.
over there? How you doing, Dimitri? Pose for the camera.
He has been. What a beauty.
Which,
So, you say you have to be open to something new.
You do.
So it's not a replacement for the old, it's a new relationship. And tell us about some of the differences, some of Dimitri's unique personality, character traits.
Well, it's interesting that you said that. We had a support group at the Seeing Eye when we got there. And a lot of the members of the support group were thinking about the dog they just lost or the dog they just retired. And it's not fair to the new dog.
Yeah.
It's not fair to build that new relationship. When I met Dimitri, he was 2.5 years old. He's a puppy.
yeah.
And we've got to be fair to each other. And opening your heart to accept that new beginning is critical.
Yeah.
Even if you're at home and have an aid and you have a replacement aid, open up to that aid.
Right.
It's so important out there.
There are so many that spiral down,
Yeah.
become very depressed, feel hopeless. And that's why we just love having you on the show, because you've stepped up. You know, there was a challenge, and you looked at the bright side of life, and, you know, making the most out of these challenges. We have so many questions that we want to get into with the three of you. First, we're going to take a break.
Sure.
And we'll be right back on Family Comes First.
Welcome back to Family Comes First. We're talking with three remarkable men with truly inspiring stories. Let's continue our discussion.
So, Mark, you've been so quiet. You always have much to say.
Sparkling wit.
That's right. What would you like to talk about?
I'd like to springboard off what Gary said before about newly diagnosed, and this isn't just for people who have been just diagnosed with any disease, but I'm more concerned about the parents of children with RA, maybe even living in a state without a pediatric rheumatologist, and there are 11 states without.
Wow.
Albany, our state capital, only has one working part-time right now, and that just started last year.
Huh.
So the critical lack of getting information or getting the right diagnosis early is so critical. And even with people who think, oh, my knee hurts, I'm getting old, go to the doctor already. Just go get it diagnosed. Start taking some anti-inflammatories, get the weight down, start eating right, whatever you have to do to control the disease for yourself. But the parents with children recently diagnosed, they're panic-stricken.
Sure.
It's awful. They're immobilized. The children are immobilized by the disease, where you can wake up at 2 months old and just be frozen in position. Or getting into 3 and 4 and 5 years old, and they can't tell you what's wrong. It hurts, it hurts, it hurts. Well, what hurts? Everything. So getting the diagnosis early, and then contacting the association that you're most closely related with is critical at that point.
Resources.
Get some information, get some help, and then sit with a group of parents who also have children with the disease, whether you've known it for 10 years or 10 minutes, it doesn't matter, but get involved.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, Mike, you shared with us on your show what it was like growing up, and that whole awareness piece.
Oh, yeah.
So I know you want to jump in on this, don't you?
I felt the elbow.
Yeah, there's no question. It is critical for anyone out there that's got special needs, but also their parents and their loved ones, never to be silent. Speak up. Make sure you get as educated as possible, as you said. Make sure you become a voice like the two of you have become. You want to be a voice out there. You want to be a role model for others. You also want to encourage and inspire others to realize that the life doesn't end with a diagnosis. The life is just beginning again. And that's so critical, but you only can do that if you are aware of the condition, if you are aware where it's going to be heading. And then you have that innate spirit in you to continue to push on. You know, we've got a family motto, Vin. You know this. It's Italian. It's avanti sempre avanti. What that means is forward, always forward. You know, I always tell my daughters, trying is one thing, but doing is another.
Sure.
Yeah.
We can't, three of us can't try to live. We have to live.
No choice.
You got to do it. That's beautiful. Now, I'm sure it was rough for them too over the summer. Can you share with us some of the challenges that you had as the parent and the focal point of all of this?
It was devastating. When I brought Warren home, the kids were excited to have their first dog.
Right.
And they, like I did, they bonded with the dog.
Sure.
And it became a baby brother for them, if you will. And when he got sick, the question started being asked, what's the matter? Is he going to live or is he going to die? And it was at a stage of my youngest daughter where we didn't think we'd have to have those kinds of discussions yet.
Right.
And I didn't know how they would react initially.
How old were your kids?
9 and 10
Very young.
at the time.
Very young.
And my 9-year-old grew very attached to Warren, very attached. And when he was put to sleep, the next hurdle for a parent is, I knew I had to open my heart to the next dog, but to get my kids
Sure.
in such a short period of time, 2 months later,
Right.
to open up their hearts to accept another dog into the house while they were still grieving the first.
How did you do it?
They did it, I didn't. They're incredible girls.
Yeah.
Incredible. I'm so proud of them.
You know, from these challenges, I know with your families, and I know with my own personal family, the kids learn so much. They become such good people. They're much more sensitive and aware of what life is really all about.
They get us through the hard times.
And they're our rock.
Yeah.
Absolutely our rock.
And my daughter's going on into the healthcare field.
Yeah.
Surprise.
There you go.
Physical therapy, and now she's in EMT school.
Wow.
Talk to us about research.
You know,
because Mark mentioned how important that is.
It is so important. It's so important. Just listening to my two friends here and the thoughts they came up with is tremendous. When we look at research, okay, and I'm sure it's in each one of us, years ago, okay, there was not much with multiple sclerosis. Modern medicine didn't know about it 15 years ago when I was diagnosed. Now they know it. Now they know it, and that's the value of research. Okay, and research costs money. Okay, fundraising is very important. But also what was mentioned, what Mark mentioned was children. Okay, we are seeing in multiple sclerosis that children can get MS. If that doesn't cause you to raise money, nothing definitely will to do it. But the key to any research movement on any of our fronts is having the monetary besides it, whether it's political, family, or outsiders.
You know, there's another side to that, too. It's not just the research in terms of health, it's the research in terms of technology.
Right.
When I went back to the seeing eye, 4 years prior, it was quiet. But this time, you just kept hearing the murmurs of Siri from the iPhones. Every single one of my blind individuals there were now connected to the world because of voiceover on the iPhone.
Wow.
So the technology, along with the advances in medicine and the need to donate and to be a voice in politics and advocacy, all of that comes together.
Yeah.
And it impacts those companies that develop the technology too.
Right.
It's hard to get people to be forward-seeing, especially when it comes to money, and especially now, because I hear in Congress all the time, well, in these tough economic times. I'm so tired of that phrase, I really am, because the ounce of prevention and the pound of cure thing is $1 spent now is going to prevent $7 from being spent later.
That's too rational.
Sorry.
That's the problem. It's just too rational, and you're right. Everybody's focused on the dollar, and
The now dollar.
The now dollar. Yeah. We have so many viewers that are watching and have previously watched your shows, and let's talk a little about tips, suggestions, points you'd like to make that could be helpful to them. We'll start with Gary.
I can tell you, my belief, as a tip, is to be very focused. Understand that no matter what your situation is, you can deal with it. You can deal with it if your mind is straight to deal with it, and if you believe in what we all believe in, is the power above, of the Lord. Okay, this could definitely lead you in the right direction. Be focused on beating your situation.
Let family support you. Let your friends support you. Your community, open up.
Yep, that's
Some
for sure.
people take the burden on 100% on themselves, and then it's so much harder.
In my specific family,
Yeah.
my boys do not let me do anything in the house because they say you shouldn't be doing it. You shouldn't be going up and down ladders, which I never did anyway. Okay, putting the Christmas tree away, all those good things. They take it upon themselves to do it.
Yeah.
And
Isn't it
of course-
amazing how they grow?
Yeah.
And they just do that.
Yeah.
See, I'm the other way around. I'll insist on doing everything myself and won't ask for help.
Right.
And I got people yelling at me, you really shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah. Well, it's hard.
Yeah. It's a
balancing
It's hard
act.
to
It's very
accept,
hard,
and
yeah.
it's hard to ask.
Yeah.
I mean, whether you have a condition or not, this is a universal human truth.
Very true.
Say thank you and ask is both
What
tough.
if I could comment on one thing, I think what all three of us have is a support mechanism in our homes.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that's so important in dealing with any situation, is that you have a family support.
Strong family.
The wife, children, all the way down. And it looks like we all have it.
And don't forget your parents,
Yep,
because you're strong because of your parents.
that's so true.
Looking forward has got to be the biggest thing. I could make a big giant list of all the things I cannot do. All the things I was doing in my teens and 20s and 30s, and that is a very long list. I was very active. but now I need to put a new list together of the things that I can do. It's all different. They're all different, but they're enjoyable. I enjoy working with my dogs, for example. And that's something I can do without being very athletic, for example.
Right.
But,
So you opened your mind to possibilities.
yeah, the future.
That's
Don't
right.
don't be looking back and saying, oh, moan and groan and moan and groan. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So new hobbies, replacing sources of joy
Yes.
and
Yeah.
interaction with communities.
Right.
Yeah.
Michael?
You know, Vin, I think the most important piece of advice I can give anyone out there is to embrace who you are. Because if you are fully accepting of who you are, and you're not disabled, you're differently abled, and if you embrace yourself in that regard, you know, sky's the limit, and you are empowered. And when you're empowered, that's when you move forward. No matter what it is in life. You move forward personally, but you also move forward because folks that deal with you feel comfortable enough to deal with you.
Well,
And that is so important in society.
I have to say, the three of you each make everyone around you so comfortable. You know, there's no feeling of awkwardness. I interacting with you and seeing how you interact with the world. You put people at ease and allow them to approach you with questions, to bring their own fears to you, and people who don't have knowledge or education about each of your different conditions can ask. So in terms of opening the doors for education, you know, what you say about putting other people at ease because you're at ease with yourself creates tremendous education opportunities because people aren't afraid to come close and
You're
ask you
building those
questions.
bridges.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would also throw in, though, that there are struggles. You struggle day to day in different ways, and you found a way to overcome it. But I know it's not easy. It can't be easy. I mean, you all look too good. All right, I hate to say it that way, but you just look too good. And I'm so happy that you look the way you do, and are the way that you are, and you're just going to inspire a whole nother group of viewers who will not feel alone, will feel there are resources. And I will personally be giving your cell number out to all of them when they call telecare. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Vincent, we've learned so much from these three individuals who have shared their stories with us and told us what it's like to cope with every day.
Absolutely. For all of us, they provide us with hope and a pathway for those with special needs.
For more about Gary, Mike, and Mark, you can watch the original shows and find a listing of available resources on Vincent's law firm's website, vjrussolaw.com.
Thanks to all our viewers for joining us, and remember, family truly does come first.